We're just doing another session on the garden, just to show you how to do different drills. So we're going to do 3 different drills. We're going to just do an ordinary drill. We're going to be doing some station sowing. We're going to be taking out a flat bottom trench and a potato trench as well, just for if you've got a little bit more space than last time where we did it in containers. Just got to do a little bit more work on the soil. As you can see, the conditions are ideal because it's not sticking to my boots, it's dried out enough, and these heads or lumps of soil are breaking down really nice. So I'm just going to put the stones to one side. I'm just finishing off this, and I'm just literally at the moment just going to about a fork depth, just to sort of try and get the rest of this area all prepared. Just get these big stones out of the way. Okay, and then now we did apply quite a lot of organic matter last year, kind of moving over to a no dig system, just to sort of see how that goes. But we are still doing a bit of cultivation, as you can see, so it's a bit of a hybrid, but it's important that we cultivate to the same depth all the way over, so that when you are growing your vegetable, bit of couch grass there, look at that, Elymus repens couch. Pop that to one side for the moment. And because then if you dig or cultivate to the same depth, you get the same size crops. So in terms of your grading your crops, it's much better. That's one of the important things with cultivation. See, the worms have been working quite hard here. I'm seeing quite a lot of worms as I do this. We've forked over the area and we're now onto the next stage. Now if there is a couple of clods, nothing to stop you get your boots and just do a bit of gardener shuffle and just clumping them down a little bit. But we're not sowing a lawn, we're going to be sowing drills, so we don't need to worry too much about that. So we've got a nice sort of fairly even sort of tilth, which is good. Next thing we're going to do is just pass the rake over it. I'm just going to use this garden rake just to rake it out a little bit. It's actually better with a hay rake, to be honest. A hay rake is just a bit easier, but I will just give it a little bit of a, and again, anything like that we can just break up as we come to it. So we're just going to pop that over it a little bit. Again, don't go too heavy with it because it will drag soil to one area. There we go. So just leveling up a bit, just so that we get those drills nice and even, and just trying to spot any other bits of couch grass or ground elder as we do it. Okay, so there we go, that's that's a little bit here. Pull that round, and then you can change the direction of your rake, and that helps to get it nice and uniform, even on the diagonal at the end. Okay, so that just gets that reasonably level there, so that's quite good. So what we need to do now is to set a line to show you how to do a drill. So we'll start over this side, and I've just got a bit of builder's line, which is ideal because it's really, you can get it nice and taut, and it's luminous as well, so hopefully you don't trip over it so often. So I'm just going to push that into the ground there and just unwind it. Try and keep as parallel as you can. I've just put a stick there, which equally I could use the stick, of course, which would do the job, and then we'll just wrap that round a couple of times, make sure that's going to get nice and tight, and then just push it into the ground the other side. I sometimes do it at an angle, and as you push it in, it tightens up. So we've got a straight line, and now we're just going to draw out a drill. To be honest about it, there's lots of ways we could draw out a drill. One way, of course, is to use a hoe or something with a bit of an angle and just take out a very, very narrow, very small channel. Okay, you might have to put your foot on the line just in case the line moves. So as you go down, just pop your foot on the line and it keeps the line nice. And we draw out a little drill there. Okay, and that one's done. Equally, we could have used a nice old roofing lat or something like that. And on the second one, what I'm going to do is to do what we call a flat bottom trench. Okay, a flat bottom trench. So I'm going to take out something a little bit wider, as if you were going to grow peas or something like that. Okay, I might just actually improvise a little bit here, and just to stop that moving, I'm going to put those just in there, just to stop that lat moving around. So I'm going to put that in, and that will hopefully stop that. And again, there's various ways we could do this. We could, if we wanted to, because there's a flat bottom trench, is one about 10 centimeters or so wide, that you can get a couple of rows of peas in. So what we can do is we can actually just use a hoe and take out a flat bottom trench. So you're looking at about a couple inches deep. Try and pull it to the sides a little bit as well, just so you don't pull it all to one end. Okay, so now we've got a nice flat bottom trench. Okay, again, I'm just pulling that over a little bit just so I don't take the whole lot to the other end. Now, of course, you could use a spade. That would be absolutely fine. Okay, so we'll just pull that out. And equally with the other drill, I could have used a stick or even my finger if I'd have really wanted to. So we'll have a look at those methods as well. So there's my flat bottom trench. So we've got the ordinary drill, we've got the flat bottom trench, as if you're going to do that for peas. And then the third one we're going to look at is a trench as if you're going to put potatoes in. I'm going to give it a little bit of distance. Now, if we're doing peas, the rule normally is that when you've put a row or a couple of rows of peas, you can do 3 rows if you want to. You want to look at what height the peas are going to grow to and leave a distance of that before you do the next row, just so that they all get sufficient light. So that's something you can do with peas, or you can do a single row. So the last one we're going to look at is a trench for potatoes. So I'm going to move my sticks over. Okay, I'm going to move over to here, pop that in there, and then we'll pop that one just down in there a little bit like that, again just to keep that nice and firm. And then what I'm going to do with this particular trench, I'm going to dig out a 6-inch depth for my potatoes. So with the potato trench, what we're going to do, I'm just going to give it about the width of a spade. I'm going to put that to one side. Okay, and what we're going to do, again, I've put using my roofing lat just to get that started. And once you've got your first bit out, you're away. So we're looking at about 6-inch depth. You could, if you wanted to, plant through black polythene, which would keep the weeds down. That would help. You could, obviously, if you're on the no-dig system, you're going to be planting through your mulch with a dibber. Okay, so I've definitely got my 6-inch depth there, so I've just got to kind of stick to about that depth, and then we can put our potatoes in. Now, with potatoes, of course, we've got our earlies, our first earlies that is, our second earlies, and we've got our main crop. So those are the 3 categories. And so round about sort of pushing towards the end of February, we start thinking about getting our first earlies in. We have to be careful because obviously they're tender and from South America, so they need covering with fleece, especially when they come through, to make sure that they don't get frosted. So in the early category, we got potatoes like Swift and Rocket, Aaron Pilot, and then you can move on to your second earlies like Charlotte, and then your main crops like Desiree. The difference between them is that the earlies actually only take between about 8 to 12 weeks to mature, where the second earlies is about 12 to 14, and then the main crops 14 weeks plus to get to maturity. So what we're going to do next is we're going to fork over the base, just to break up the pan, make sure that there's good drainage. Potatoes are good, they will break up the soil for you. They're a great crop if you want to sort of re-establish an area, or an area that's got out of hand, to reclaim it. Okay, so we're just going to fork over the base. I'm not going too mad here, because the potatoes will do a lot of that for us, and a lot of the roots will be in the top part. So having just forked it, I could actually go a little bit deeper if I'm worried about the pan, but that will be fine. And then what I'm going to do is get some of this organic matter. Just need to check it a little bit. I can see there's an odd bit of root knocking around there. Got to be careful what's coming into the garden, where you get it from, what its history is. You know, they use chemicals, or you know, how they sort of prepared their bedding material. So we're just putting a little bit of organic matter, a bit of good old farmyard manure into the bottom. Okay, oh gosh, dust mask. And then we're going to now mix that in. Just mix it up a little bit with a bit of soil, just to make sure there's a nice big stone there. We'll just put that to one side. And there we go. We've got that, and now we can put our potatoes in. So we'll do this one first, then we'll do the flat bottom trench, and then we'll do the drill. So what I'm going to do is make myself a spacer. Just found a little bit of a, I don't know, it's an old cane or an old twig, and I'm going to make myself a spacer for my potatoes. So I've got a tape measure here, so I'm going to put them in about 450, which for this type of crop will be fine. Okay, so I'm going to go 450 there on my stick, and there we are. Just get my secateurs. I'll pop that back in the holster out the way, and now I've got myself a stick. These have got some little spurts on them. They could have actually gone a bit longer actually to get them to about just about ½ inch to an inch, about, you know, 25 mil, 12 to 25 mil would have been fine, but these are okay. I'm going to plant them so that the rows, the bit with the spurts in it, pointing upwards. So I put one there, push it in well, push it in second, push in third. Okay, number 4. I'm just going to put one there, just about to get that one in on the end. Okay, I might actually just pull up the back a little bit just to space it out, and there we go. That's my row of potatoes. And then what I can do is just backfill. So we just pull the soil over that, and we just got to keep our eye on it before the end of May. If they come up before the end of the May, then there could be a frost. So I'm going to actually kind of mound it up a little bit. Obviously they'll get earthed up later on, but just so they're all nice and covered, and they're all in, ready hopefully for a crop July, August. Okay, so that's got them covered. So that's my potatoes done. Just nearly need to put a label or something in the end there, just to remind me that I've got my potatoes there. The next thing, just going back to the flat bottom trench, we can do some peas in there. You can sow some peas, and that will just do that quite nicely. So I've got my peas, hopefully. There they are. The packet, and there we go. So what we're going to do with the peas, we're going to put them in about 2 inches apart and about 10 centimeters between the rows. Some people put them, as I say, in rows of 3, and then they allow the height of the crop distance between them. So here we go, so we're literally putting them in 2 inches apart, 10 centimetres between the row, and away we go. So just putting them in, pop them in, and we can just put them in like that. So that's a flat bottom trench for something like a row of peas. You don't have to do this, you could do a single trench of course if you haven't got sufficient space. And we'll just put them in. There you go, there's our trench. So I've gone right to the sides just to maximise the space. There you go, that's the peas are in. And then of course we can backfill, move that out of the way for a minute, and we'll just kind of cover them over. Could use the rake or the spade and just pop that in. There we go. Try not to move it around too much. So you want about, say, about a couple of inches or so. If the ground was really wet, some people put a bit of sand in the bottom just to help drain it away. Sometimes you water the drill. If we're going to have a really kind of dry spell, you actually water the drill before you sow, because if you water afterwards and the sun comes out, then what happens is then it can cap the soil. So the soil is just like a melted chocolate over a chocolate cake, and it sets quite hard, and then of course it caps it so the seeds can't get through the cap. The way the weather's going at the moment, we're looking okay, so I'm actually not going to water the drill, I'm just going to sow. Okay, so what I've got is I've just got a stick about 6 inches in terms of height, and then what I'm going to do is just do, again, you can use your finger, or if you want to put your glove on, you can use a stick to draw a drill. There's lots of different ways. So I'm going to use 1, 2, 3. Okay, got the spacing on the drill, on the that again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and on you go. So that's station sowing, where you're doing, could be 1 on its own, could be 3 on its own. So you would sow the length of the drill like that if you were station sowing, or you know. Another thing you can do is what's called intercropping. So intercropping, what you do if you were intercropping, you would sow something like radish in between the parsnips, or scorizina as I'm doing, and what happens is the radish will mature earlier. So you'll have your crop of radish, and then later on in the year you'll get your crop of scorizina or your crop of parsnips. So I can be a little bit cheeky, and I can actually just sow a few radish in between there. So that's a little bit of inter-sowing going on there, just to do that. So that's that. But normally most of our sowing, whether it's particularly with carrots or a lot of crops, or might be brassicas, the secret is sowing thinly. And so you're just going to gently sort of move it, so you just really want to not be dropping a lot at one time. Keep your hands moving, roll it between your thumb and finger. So just roll the seed between your thumb and finger, and that's how you can thin out the seeds that way. The problem is, if we're going to do a lot of thinning later, that might attract carrot root fly and other problems. So it's better, if you can, to sow at a nice generous spacing to avoid that competition, stop the seeds damping off and all those problems. Once you've got that drill done, in order to backfill, what you can do, again, there's lots of different ways of doing this, but this is quite a popular way, where you roll your feet over the drill. So the other method is watering the drill before sowing. Now obviously if you've got a rose, that would probably be a little bit better, but I'm going to be fairly careful and just put a gentle amount of water in the drill. Okay, so that carrots. I've already put the water in, and bearing in mind that germination requires warmth, air and moisture. One of my old tutors used to say, wigwam, what induces germination? Warmth, air, moisture, a viable seed, and that's all important when you are sowing. So now we've got the water in there. When we put the seed in, we should have all the conditions there. The other key thing, of course, is that the soil needs to be warm enough to sow seeds, and you can get a soil thermometer to pop in the ground, which will tell you, obviously what the temperature is. You want it at 7 degrees plus for carrots to make sure that you're not going to put them in too early, even a bit later. If it's 9-10 degrees, even better. So that's something you can do. In order to get the temperatures up, you could cover the ground just to help move things forward a little bit. Some people with experience use their finger in the soil. Some people wait to see if the perennial weeds are starting to grow, and that gives them an idea that the soil has warmed up enough. So what we're going to do, again, I'm just going to sow thinly into here, about sort of 6 inches or so apart. So that is thin sowing. It's practically station sowing actually, because they're all quite fairly even. And then obviously once they come up, we can do some thinning out. So we've done the ordinary drill, where you just take out a drill. You can use your finger, you can use the side of a hoe, you've got your flat bottom drill, and you've got your slightly wider potato drill. So 3 types of drill to have a go at.